All right.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We got cameras on our faces now, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. New technology, coming up. Welcome back to episode. I guess this is right. Well, this is episode 1 because we did a
The last
pilot
episode was
last week.
episode 0. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the pilot. It was the pilot, and we learned a lot on the pilot. You can still find the pilot episode on my other Twitch channel, which is Tyler Jacobson Art. But we've moved over to our own channel that we made called Livebrush, and this is episode 1. So what we're going to be doing here is going back into the paintings we started last week, and we're both working in oils this time. Ray was working in acrylic to do his underpainting last week, and this week we're going to go into oils, which means what we have to do is something called oiling in or oiling out, whichever you want to call it. But that is putting a really thin layer of oil over the surface, very thin. And what happens is the new paint you put down will react with a really thin oil layer, and it'll give it a sort of fake alla prima. You're faking alla prima. Alla prima is painting wet into wet. So you're recreating that wet into wet feel on all your edges. But Ray's doing it over acrylic. So Ray's going to start oiling out here, and I'll hand this over to Ray so he can talk about what he's going to do.
Yeah. So basically, just exactly what Tyler said. I'm going to be applying a medium of sorts to prime this layer so that essentially I can get a bit of a gloss that will make it easier for me to match glossy oil painting colors to this surface. Now, with the cool thing about acrylics is that you can actually paint oil on top of acrylics, and where you can't paint acrylic on top of oils. So, and the great thing about acrylics is since they dry so fast, you can set up a lot of your preliminary parts of your painting. And then when you get to oils, if you need more sort of longer, lengthier drying times, your surface will be ready to go. But the thing about acrylics is that they dry to sort of a semi-matte finish. And so I'm going to be using a medium. Now you could use any oil you want. Tyler, whatever medium you use is basically going to affect the drying time of the paint, as well as how it kind of handles on the surface. I'm going to use this thing called Winsor Newton Artist Painting Medium, which is basically just, I guess, linseed oil mixed in with, thinned down with a little bit of mineral spirits, or some people know it as odorless turpentine. And that gives me a glossy finish, which allows me to kind of work my paint into it. And then also it extends the drying time just a little bit. And I like to work with my paint surface with stuff like this, especially portraits where I have to kind of paint in and out of things, with a surface that will takes a little bit longer to dry. But it depends on the situation that I'm at.
Right.
Now, Tyler,
I'm using dryers. So what I have here is I'm using linseed oil, but it has a few drops of cobalt dryer in it, which will allow the linseed oil to stiffen up. And I think it's like 5 or 6 hours, maybe up to 8 hours. That's really helpful for illustration work that I do, because then I'm with other dryers that I'm using, like I like to use liquid fine detail in the actual paint. That allows it to all be dry by the next day. But I only oil out with this liquid cobalt dryer. And you can use other stuff. I know there's aspects of, I'm sorry, I said liquid. This is linseed oil and cobalt dryer. There's aspects of linseed oil that will yellow. So you could use something like walnut oil, which does a lot less yellowing. And the other thing is, if you use cobalt dryer, be extremely careful. It is just pure poison. Here is a little vial of it. You don't want to spill this in your studio.
Yeah, look at that thing. That looks like poison, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one you can see it on. This is the bigger camera, but it's don't spill this. Only have it open for a couple seconds. It ain't good for you.
Now, Yeah.
Yes.
So
So go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
in between, when especially with oil paints, when those layers dry, what happens is the oil itself dries, and some of the depending on the pigment, you'll actually have the pigment will actually sink in to the surface of the paint, and so you basically will get like a matted kind of like some areas that are kind of matte and some areas that are kind of glossy, and usually the darks dry a little bit lighter than what they were like when everything was dark. So to paint back into that is kind of madness, right? Because you're trying to match colors that really weren't there to begin with, or values. And so to even out the surface, so you have a nice even sheen. A lot of artists oil out, and that's why we're doing that. That's why, like, even though I painted in acrylics, I want to do that so that I can have a glossy sheen to it, so it looks like I'm painting back into oil paints.
Yeah, and you have like a nice matte finish right now on those acrylics. So once you start
Right.
putting oils down, hopefully you folks can see in the feed, like it's going to be crazy. Like all the darks are going to be really dark. They're going to wake right back up.
Yeah, it'll look really nice. Yeah. So I mean, so what I do
it's going to be amazing, right? It's going to be
amazing. But how fast we're going explaining this thing is probably all I'm going to end up doing on this painting to begin with. So I have everything in a jar here, and since Tyler was sneaky and oiled out his stuff before the stream started, I'm going to take a makeup wedge, and you could apply it with a brush. I like a makeup wedge because I could squeeze out the amount, and it's nice and soft, and it makes a smooth type of application here. And I'm just
right.
I just want a really thin amount.
Oh, go ahead, do it, man.
Yeah.
I was going to say, while you're kind of prepping your sponge, is that I use a brush, and I just brush it on the canvas, and then I use a microfiber cloth to wipe it all off. So it's just really thin. But as you can see, as Ray's doing this, it's starting to get this really nice deep darks on everything.
Yeah, so look how luscious those colors are, right? And so then you could see kind of the difference between these two parts right here. And, if those weren't oiled out, then I would be matching colors, matching essentially colors to the wrong colors. And a lot of times what happens is, if you don't oil it out, and let's say you go and varnish a painting, which is essentially just sealing it off and evening it out the surface, you'll get all, and if you weren't careful about oiling out and you painted on over dried paint that had been sunken in, you'll get these weird patchy marks that always just come out of nowhere. And that sucks, to be honest with you. So I've had that happen to me. And you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, the wet, I mean, when paint is wet on your palette, it has the same appearance as oiled out paint, because it's wet oil, right? So when it dries and that goes away, you get that matte finish. And I've done this myself. I've tried to match to matte stuff, and once it's all dry, you have like a varying degree of value difference. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, and usually this happens when because we don't oil it out because either it's not fully dry, which is or some parts of the painting aren't fully dry, or we're just lazy, which is an artistic term for thinking about things, right? And so it's called artistic license, right? And so so don't be lazy.
I'm often being very lazy.
Yeah.
With my contemplation of
don't be Tyler,
universe.
Okay? Don't be Tyler.
So this is all, I mean, I guess the reason we're talking about those is because it's quite challenging to get back into a painting, and there are great steps you can take. And oiling out is number one. The other hard part is matching color. That's like, at least for me, I'm still struggling with this as a process to get it to be just right. Like, for example, like on this side of Ripley's face, she has this really warm light coming in. And as you can see right there, like that is, I haven't matched it anywhere near what it is, what I want it to be on here. It's like 3 steps too dark. It's not even yellow. It's just a mess. So this is the challenge when you're oiling back in. And what my step tends to be is, or my process tends to be, I will mix up a whole bunch of colors ahead of time and then kind of dab them into the places that I think I'm trying to match. This is before I oil out so that I can just wipe them off because it's a dry painting. So I can put paint down, and if it's not right, I can wipe it off with a rag and we're all good. It's not going to stay there. That's kind of how I'm trying to match it.
Hey, Tyler, going back to Liquin, Rain Mecca in the chat asks, is it a substitute for linseed, or is it better than linseed? Cynthia Shepard says she swears by Liquin.
Yes. Hi, Cynthia. Cynthia's one of my ADs at Magic.
Whoa, Cynthia's in the chat
I don't
room?
think Cynthia's in the chat, but she got name dropped by Rain Mecca.
Oh, okay.
Whoa,
well,
okay.
yes. So let's talk about those differences. Let me put a couple up here on the camera. So if you can see this is Liquin Original, made by Winsor Newton. And this is a new one I started using called Liquin Fine Detail. Now, they can be substitutes for linseed oil because they are mediums. They're transparent. And they're oils, but these 2 specific things are for speeding up the drying time of your paint. Now, this is Liquin Original. It's kind of goopy and it kind of gets yellow in the bottle, so is a little unnerving.
Yeah.
And then this is Liquin Fine Detail, which is a lot more like linseed oil in its viscosity, which I like. So linseed oil is typically what's used to make the paints. And so it actually extends the drying time of the paint when you use it. Just a little bit, but it does. Whereas these liquins make it dry faster. Linseed oil is pretty safe, I'd say. It's not really poisonous.
You could drink it. It's vegetable oil, so.
Yeah, it's perfectly safe. Whereas
don't go drinking things, and if you do drink things, then just tell the doctor that Tyler told you it's okay. But
talk to your doctor, say I'm okay. I guess rule number 1: don't put any oil paints in your mouth. There's lead in a lot of them, and don't put any solvents near you, your skin, or don't let it aerosol in your studio. And Liquin specifically, don't really get it on your body too much, or breathe it in an unventilated area. But it's great for speeding up dry times.
Yeah, it's because it oxidizes the air molecules around the paint. So it basically just like kills the oxygen around, helps speed up the oxidation process in oil painting. And so, and to do that, they basically melt a resin in, it's like a melted resin in like refined gasoline, which is basically what mineral spirits are. And so,
right. On the bottle, it says petroleum based, so it's gasoline.
So
essentially.
Have some good ventilation, which it's easier for me in the summers. I can because I can paint with Liquin. It doesn't get too fumy. I have the windows open. I have fans going, but in the winter it's a little bit more difficult. And I live in New York, where the winters are a little longer, and so it gets pretty cold. So I tend to not use Liquin as much, and basically just try and get as much done with acrylics as possible. But these mediums are just to help with things. I mean, in the end, they really don't matter, to be honest with you.
Hold on, we got a peanut gallery here. Frodo has something to say.
Yeah, I think Frodo disagrees. But
yeah,
they're not going to make
really
your drawing. They're not going to make your drawing better. God, I wish. That'd be great. if the mediums just sort of like got me the right color quicker, or like made me cappuccinos and stuff like that, but they just don't, it just helps make the paint a little bit more, I guess it changes the viscosity and the the properties of it, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing, right? It's not a magic assistant, but what it does is it, paint right out of the tube is it's thicker than toothpaste. So
Right.
it's not necessary unless you want a really heavy impasto effect, which is an effect that's like really thick paint strokes, where you can see all the bristles. You kind of, if you want that, great. But if you don't want that, you want to thin it down so it kind of goes more evenly onto your surface. So that's pretty much what mediums are there for. But as for me, I need quicker dry times. I need to be able to paint and then go in the next day and be able to paint again, and then the next day, one after another. So having something that dries fast is very important.
So I have a reason for using the mediums, is basically what we're getting at. They don't have magical properties.
Yeah, there's nothing magical, right? I mean, and the point we're trying to show you folks different approaches is that Ray and I have different styles of painting. So that's why we're kind of doing this side by side. So you can see that there's no one way to paint a piece. There's no hard rule on how everything has to be done and painted. It's all about finding your process that works for you.
Or you could just do it right and paint like me.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. If you want to bumble through it like I do, then you have to tell yourself every day that there's no method. That there's no method.
There's no method.
You got to convince yourself.
Yeah, you got a lot of time on your hands, and don't mind, and are fairly masochistic anyway.
Yeah, we feel and
yeah, we have like these. It's so interesting, like that we came from the same training, but we had like we like a lot of the same art, right? I think we're drawn to a lot of the same things in art, like aesthetically especially, and so
yeah, for sure.
And even then, we have like little things we like to do, like you can't. It's hard to escape your wiring. You're just going to do things a little bit differently than the person next to you. So, there was we had a teacher. His name was Xiaoming Wu. He's a painter from China. It's an incredible painter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, we'll be talking about as I try and progress to a finish on this, and a little bit more about about what his philosophy on things and everything like that. But Xiaoming would had this incredible style, and like, of course, the first thing you did, it was just he would paint. All of our teachers would paint with us, while we were painting from a live model and things like that, or painting in a landscape outside. And so when Xiaoming would paint alongside of students, it was just like you would just see magic basically happening every single class. And he was so good. He still is really good.
Still is.
But still is.
He still posts stuff, and I think Ray and I still send them to each other, and we're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Pardon my French again, but it's just way too good.
This is a bilingual stream. So.
Oh yeah, so that's right.
Yeah,
we'll occasionally swear. Hide your kids.
So but of course the first thing you did. What was the first thing we did? When we got to Xiaoming's class, try to copy Xiaoming. Yeah. Like, it's
100%.
Yeah. After we picked up our jaws from the floor, we try to copy him, right? And like you could kind of fake Xiaoming, but you'll never be Xiaoming, and we realized really quickly,
And there was he was a good teacher, right? But it was also, and still is a great teacher, I'm sure, for the students there. But there's there's a cryptic quality to his instruction. You know, you would ask him like, hey, what you know, while he's painting, what color are you using there? And he'd just kind of point at it on his palette, and it was probably like whatever, cobalt blue or French ultramarine. He'd just point at it and go, blue, and that was it. That's all he's gonna really say.
Yeah, he was about the big picture of things, you know, not the sort of, he was more the macro, not the micro. And so he was a big proponent about structure and like concepts that basically were medium agnostic, you know, like, so like we could apply the same thing to like drawing, painting digitally, painting in watercolor and acrylics. It didn't matter, you know. And so a lot of the things was how to turn form with value. And he was a big time value, just a master of value, lightness and darkness of things. And so, but you know, that just takes years, you know. Like I'm still understanding now. I mean, 11 years after. I mean, how long? Right? Was it been 11? We said 11.
Yeah, man. Like that, right? Shit, 11 years.
Shit, right? Oh, yeah. So, well, you're old. You look awful. You know.
I mean, I'm old.
I look great. I look great. You know. So, but
the profile, you look pretty good.
Hey, I got another question from Rain Mecca before you guys ramble too much. Again, going back to linseed, can you use liquid and linseed in the same painting, or when you go for linseed, it's linseed all the way and liquid all the way?
No, you can use both. In fact, if you want to slow linseed, if you want to slow the liquid down a little bit, you can put linseed oil into it. It'll slow it a smidge, and you can fool around with that mixture. I actually have a mixture around here somewhere. You can fool around with that mixture, but I'd make it in small batches because it will dry in that jar because the liquid's such a forceful speed dryer. But yeah, you can mix them together. It doesn't matter. I think, you know, the literature on liquid will suggest that you don't want to varnish with it. But I've seen mixed effects. I've varnished with it and haven't really seen terrible results. The only issue is that the literature about liquid is that it is creating sort of a suffocating layer over the oils. It doesn't allow the oils to breathe and cure properly. So there is a risk of having yellowing or drying issues or blooming. But I haven't noticed that. I think you have to be really heavy-handed with the liquid to get those effects. But yeah, so I guess back to your question again. Yeah, you can mix the two in mediums. You can easily combine them. It's no big deal.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, as long this type of stuff, as long as you're just not completely off the rails by it, there's a lot of flexibility in it. You know, and a lot of times, a lot of that literature stuff is written by conservators, right? And they just want to make it so that their jobs are a lot easier. And you know, with varnishes and like Damar varnish or even like a retouch varnish, you know, they're removable, right? And so yeah, as long as they're going over like a dried surface. And so if there's anything wrong with the varnish, you could remove it and not damage the painting layer underneath. But with liquid, it fuses to the painting layer, so you can't remove it if you messed up on it. But you know,
so the point is, if you're a time traveler and you want to go to the future and see that your paintings are still doing good, by all means.
And you don't want to be disappointed. Yeah, by all means, yeah. Just yeah, don't like, you know, you don't have to do much, you know, like don't paint, you know, acrylics over oils or water-based over oil, you know, because that will just crack and fall off. But you know, beyond that, mess around with it. You can test it out if you're not, you know. I mean, it doesn't, I don't know about you, but it doesn't concern my thoughts. If I just keep things simple for myself, I'm fine, but I don't really, preoccupied with like, the surface and worrying too much about that, as long as I practice just common sense.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I want to avoid yellowing just for collector's sake, but
Yeah.
I'm also not doing anything like crazy extreme where it's gonna happen. I don't store my paintings in the dark, which can be a problem. And I don't use I don't use anything super heavy handed that I know might yellow. Even linseed oil, I don't like coat it in linseed oil when I'm gonna oil out.
Yeah.
So just be reasonable, don't go crazy. Just, if you're gonna do something big, test it out on little swatches or something.
Question from the chat from Evacuate. This is actually from last episode, and I asked them to table it so that we could get to it this week, because it sounds like it's probably
Sweet.
going to have a long answer. As a professional, did you ever receive artistic direction you didn't agree with on a project? How did you resolve that situation?
Ray, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I just found the biggest piece of furniture that I could find, get my hands on, and I hurled it as far as I could.
Yeah, and you storm out of class. You storm out of the class.
So I
Real easy. Works real well.
Yeah, so it was artistic direction from like an art director or a teacher. Sorry, Kate, I had color on the
We're
mind.
looking for either AD. I think AD, but for your purposes, if it's not something that you've done that you can remember from an AD, I'll accept teacher.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I mean
Oh.
ADs, yeah, for sure. I could, yeah, I mean like it's a balance, right? I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in episode 0 when it was just known as Ray and Tyler Go Live, or Tyler and Ray Go Live.
Yeah, my name first.
And yeah,
sorry,
not,
that's accurate.
Not a sweet name with a sweet logo like Livebrush, which it's gonna be awesome. Follow us on Instagram. It's awesome.
Put together
anyway,
by
so
the amazing Kate Welch, by the way.
The incredible Kate Welch, the indestructible Kate Welch.
Indestructible, indeed. I'll take that.
So yeah, so a lot of times you're dealing with people. Art directors have a lot of things going on when it comes to like a project, right, in mind. So they're not only thinking about the art, they're thinking about the type, they're thinking about what their boss or their superiors are gonna go for, and they also have their aesthetics in mind. And so like a lot of times, sometimes the visions don't line up. Ideally, a good art director will pick the right artist for the right project, and usually have like they're kind of on the same page. But sometimes it just doesn't happen, and you just have to understand that you're being hired by them, right? And so it's kind of like a customer service thing, end of the being an artist, where like you have to be able to work and collaborate with the person. And so if you strongly feel that it's they're going off the deep end and they're ruining the image, then you could present them, there's an art to presenting them your idea, and being clear and respectful about it. But if they have other things in mind, and they have a vision they want to go with, then it's again, it depends on the situation, but it's kind of they're paying you, so you have to kind of make it work. And I think the creative problem solving is really what being a professional artist is all about. You're not gonna, when you're a professional artist, and I think Tyler had said this before too, like it's like you basically aren't hired, and if people are saying like, okay, just do whatever you want, that really doesn't happen. It's all about like what's, and Tyler, in his case, when he was talking about licensed stuff, it's like what's good for what's being on brand. Like if you did something for Marvel Comics, and you had no one, you have to understand, like you might have your vision of what Black Widow looks like, but Marvel has their vision, and if Marvel's paying you, then you're gonna have to tweak your your vision to make sure that you're matching their vision, so everything is on consistent with their brand, because again, at the end of the day, they're trying to sell something with it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I agree here. Is obviously the professional answer in creative feedback from an art director is absolutely, I can do that. Like, that's your answer. Unless I mean, if you're to a point where you're at your wit's end with corrections, then you're to a point where you need to make the decision: do I walk away from this and burn a bridge, or do I just do the work I was hired to do? But yeah, the professional answer is yes, I can do that. And yeah, like Ray said, you are working for them. You are being hired to do, to help execute their creative vision. And it is a partnership, because like Ray said, any good art director is going to pick the right person for the job. But you have, there's a certain amount of, I guess, swallowing your pride when it comes to, I guess, being that creative partner with any company.
It's humbling, right? I think it's really,
Yeah.
And usually, a lot of times, at least for me, like trying to figure out a creative solution will a lot of times yield a better image, for a lot of the projects that I had worked on, where I had an art director that was really specific. But
yeah, I think that's the best part, really. Yeah. It's that problem solving and creative partnership is kind of the most, I think, rewarding part of being an illustrator. You get to solve problems, and they're complicated problems. I like that aspect of it, the challenge of solving a really complicated thing.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of times, at least with the illustration, it's very much working with people who aren't necessarily as visually articulate as you are, and so their idea might look great in their head, but it might not be feasible or actually possible verbatim if you were to execute it in as like a visual image. And so you've got to work with that. Like I used to do theater posters, and I'd work with the directors, and they were from the theater world and thinking in 3 dimensions and thinking in things that were moving. And so I had a director one time talk about how, like, they wanted a poster where the camera zoomed in and zoomed out on things. And I had to kind of explain to them that it was like a flat image and you can't do that. And they said, no, but I want them to zoom in and then zoom out and then zoom back out. And then you see the person's face, but then you zoom in and then you see people in a cafe. And so you have to kind of, it's kind of like you're trying to take their language, their emotional language, and their theater language, and translate that into your aesthetic language, of drawing and painting and in 2D. And so that has a lot to do with the job, and it's never, a lot of times with that type of stuff, that type of feedback, they're not meant to. It's not meant to, you have to kind of, you have to translate it. And so it's not really a verbatim, because if you did it verbatim, and I've done that, it's never what they want, right? It's like, and so so you have to think, okay, what do they mean about multi-camera? Okay, let's try a montage, because you could do that with multiple different images, and like, think about like a movie poster, treat it like a movie poster. And that's how I was able to solve that, and that was just one example. And it all depends on the person you're working with. Like I would even, I had an art director, a theater director, would always give me directions by using 3 words, like would show me a slideshow and have 3 main words. Like they would say like unity, redemption, and hope. And they say, okay, that's what I want in the poster. And you're thinking to yourself, what the heck does that even
All right.
mean? So you've got to go in and you got to do your research, and you got to be an expert in, so you can kind of see where they're coming from. And yeah.
I mean,
Enough
I
talking to
can't.
me.
No, but I mean, I can't count the number of times where I have had a sequence of events described to me for a still image. It's an illustration, right? It's a flat image. One thing is occurring. It's either during the event, after the event, or before the event. And I have so many times in my career received every event that's going on, and you can't depict the one event. I mean, you can't depict all those events because this is not a animated frame. This is a still painting.
Right.
It's almost maddening, and when you have to deal with that. But I tend to approach that when I receive an art description like that, where I clarify. I say, okay, this is describing multiple moments in time, and I'm going to need. I would like to know which moment in time you would want to occur, and then I'll give examples, and it's the same as what I just mentioned: the before an event, after event, or during an event. And that is sort of how I deal with those, because most of the time, I mean, I'd say a good art director is going to check that, right? They're going to see that, and they're going to be like, well, okay, I know this artist isn't going to be able to depict all these moments in time, so I will rewrite this for them. But oftentimes it's coming from a writer who's, they're not necessarily working in the same mindset as the artist is working from. We're working from a completely visual perspective. And
Yeah, you ever had like
have to kind of check them.
Yeah. It's like having a buddy like who's like, oh, I've got the greatest idea for the next Star Wars, right? I mean, like, hear me out. And then they describe this thing that they're super passionate about, and you could tell they're not artists because they just they're describing this like train wreck of a movie, right? And you're thinking, that's the worst idea I've ever heard in my entire life. And a lot of the times, having sometimes working with people that are hiring you is like that. It's like, oh my God, and so, but it's kind of your job to, like Tyler was saying, like to clarify, and also to show them not what they want per se. It's what they want. They're describing the feelings they want people to have when they see it, right? And they may not know that, but that's really what it is, and so you have to. And that's the role of an artist, right? It's to curate the emotional response you're getting out of a piece of artwork. And is it happy? Is it sad? Is it foreboding? Is it, and all of these abstract concepts that you have to visualize. Not easy, right? Not easy at all. And it takes years to do that. And when you're in school, you're trained, we were trained by artists, other artists. And so they understood the visual language. But when you're working, when you leave school, all of a sudden you're dealing with people who are in positions where they're hiring you that don't have the same background. And that's where, that working through that and being able to translate that comes into to play. But I mean, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it sucks when you get a piece of feedback and you're like, what the F? It's like, you want me to do what? Because you hear your cousin, your cousin Frankie, little Frankie.
Frankie. It's always asking for impossible stuff.
Dumb ideas,
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you don't want to be like, "Oh, that's dumb" to the art director, right? You want to try and figure out how to course correct them. I mean, it may be coming from a writer, you know, it may be coming from someone that's one of their bosses, someone higher up. There's just it's just, they're coming to you because you're the professional. They want you to create imagery for them. So just, if something doesn't make sense or can't be visually depicted, check them a little bit, you know, just say, hey, like, let's discuss this. I think the running joke I have with some illustrator friends of mine is, there's a bunch of things you run into all the time, like things can't glow black. This often comes up, especially working in magic, right? You know, everything's glowing, but every once in a while you'll run into something that says it's glowing black. Well, you know, nothing can glow black really. So what do they mean by that? Now you have to kind of put on and try and think through this, like, okay, what do they mean when they say they want this to be glowing black? And offer them solutions. Never write an email that says this can't be done. You don't want to come off that way.
Or dumb with, like, you know, 13 U's, you know.
Right. Stupid. This is so dumb. Yeah, you're dumb. Like, never say that. But try and find creative solutions. Because sometimes you're going to get weird stuff. I think I have a big list of what I have sort of call like art description pet peeves. Glowing black is very high on the list. Another one that is difficult. Yeah, another one that's very difficult is the concept of, you know, if anyone out there is writing art descriptions, maybe jot these down. But don't write about what you don't want to see is like a major rule. So if someone has a really complicated scar on their face with a really long backstory about that scar, and then the last sentence in your art description is, oh, but they wear a helmet over the scar all the time, then you didn't need to talk about the scar. We didn't need to know about it. Because this is the reason why I say don't talk about what you don't want to see, is that the illustrator is going to bend over backwards to show what you don't necessarily want to see. Like, if you talk about that scar and then you say it's covered up all the time, most of the time the illustrator is going to find a way to show it. It's going to maybe be weird. Or
like a glint in the sword, right?
Yeah, or like glint in the sword, or like there's a very complex symbol on the back of their cape, but we're seeing them from the front. So the artist is going to bend over backwards to get you to see the back of the cape. It's going to be like blowing over their shoulder in some way, and you're going to see the back of it. And it's not necessarily what you're going to want to get if you're writing an art description for them. So never talk about what you don't want to see. I have a long list. We could dedicate a whole episode to the important things that need to be talked about in art descriptions.
I don't know, Tyler. Sounds like you listed awesome things. Things glowing black and scars.
Oh, I guess another favorite one of mine is you see the character from a worm's eye view, so like from the ground, but we see their whole body, head to toe. So,
got it.
I mean, that's nearly impossible when you place the camera that low, and you're kind of seeing. You're essentially like the camera's on their toe, and we're seeing their entire body in perspective, at the most extreme perspective you can imagine. Those are always fun.
It's impossible. Maybe if they hire you.
A worm's eye view? Is that what it was?
A worm's eye view, yeah. Which is a very low camera angle.
Listen, if you want that in your artwork, you go ahead and call me up. I'll facilitate.
Yeah, Ray's willing to do that.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Let's slap on that Dutch angle, baby.
Oh man, the perils of crazy art descriptions. We could dedicate just so much time to that. All right, so I'm back over here on Ripley, on my painting. I'm being a little impressionistic with this heat that's coming from the side. You can't really see the reference I'm working from, but it's just a frame from the movie. And she's got some hot light coming from the side. I am really blowing it out. It's way cooler in the actual image.
Would you say that's a worm's eye view?
This is a worm's eye view, everyone. Guess we could turn this whole show into just like a gripe fest.
No, let's. I
Let's not.
like it when you. Here's what I'll do. Yeah, I'll. You can gripe, and then I can basically say that your gripes are really unwarranted, and basically turn it into a huge advertisement for myself.
Yeah. Things I'm going to gripe about. Ray will do them. Ray will do them.
Do you want to hire someone like that? Or you want to hire someone awesome? Ray Bonilla, host of Livebrush.
Just I'm imagining some historical YouTube video. It's like, and this is in Tyler Jacobson's career when his career kind of ended. He stopped doing work.
Oh my God.
It seems to be rooted in the fact that he complained about weird art descriptions.
That'd be awesome.
So Tyler, they're in your future, they're making YouTube videos about the rise and fall of your career. That's how.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the opinion that you have of yourself. Is that this will definitely be like a VH1 behind the art.
I think it's
this stream's about being humble.
The stream is now about dunking on Tyler.
I think it's going to be more like a biopic, like directed by, I don't know, David Fincher, just for the lighting, just for the lighting and the darker cinematography, the available light sort of scenario.
You'd be like 103 by that time.
No, he'll be like a machine. Like they will have.
Oh, okay.
They'll have downloaded him into a robot of some kind, because this is like hundreds of years from now when they make this
hundreds of years, yeah.
Really incredible, moody documentary about me.
It'll be
but yeah,
David. But it'll be DAI vid Fincher bot. We have a question from Cybercoil in the chat.
Yeah, hey, enough fooling around. Let's get back to questions.
Tyler, hey Tyler, Matthias Kohlroos.
Yes,
here.
ma'am.
Are the gloves for varnish? Also, what do you guys do for ventilation? Great job so far. Greetings from Austria.
Oh wow, Austria. Wow.
Nice. Who's that person?
That was Cybercoil, aka Matthias Kohlroos.
Matthias. I know Matthias. He's the best. He's a very, very good artist, folks. So Matthias, we haven't hung out in a long time. Just want to tell you that. We stopped chatting.
Tyler sounds like a bad friend.
No, but I'm wearing gloves because I don't really enjoy getting. I'm using Liquin and a bunch of other stuff. I don't like getting it on my hands. I would wear them I kind of wear them whenever I use these black ones, but I wear them whenever I'm using oils because I don't want to get it onto my skin. Not really good for your skin. And I'm using Liquin and all kinds of noxious stuff. So, and I wear black ones because I think that the blue hospital gloves and the white ones are it's like staring into the glare of snow, kind of. It's almost blinding. So I like these dark ones so that I'm not dealing with the glare.
I don't know if I can
see on rays. Like if you put something up there, it kind of skews your color accuracy.
Yeah, you could kind of see the reflection of something that's light. It's hard to do it on stream, but you're just gonna have to take our word for it.
Yeah, trust us. Just trust us. And as for ventilation, I think Ray and I use the exact same thing. It's like a little R2D2 sized cylinder that runs as an air filter all the time. I just have it kind of running constantly in my studio. There's other methods though. You can have a fan in your window that pulls air out of your studio. You can have like big industrial fans if you're in like a big open space. It's just good to not work in a confined space without some kind of air filter airflow with oil paints.
Yeah, with oil paints, if you have distilled like thinners and things like that. I mean, there is a way of working in confined spaces with like everything is non-toxic. So you're thinning things down with like walnut oil or anything, things like that, like instead of like mineral spirits. I know a lot of painters that do that, and it'll just really smell like linseed and walnut oil. But if you don't mind that smell, then it's not toxic. But the only thing that would be toxic, obviously, would be the pigments, which you wouldn't want to ingest. And so that's the reason why we wear gloves, so that I'm lazy, and I know Tyler is, and washing your hands after painting in oils all day is like, just takes forever. And
I still do it, to be honest.
yeah, so do I. But and also it will just so you don't forget that you had oil paints on your hands and go eat something if you don't want to do that. So
yeah,
that's
I
bad.
tend to I tend to never have solvents open in my studio. So that's a way to avoid the terrible, like, solvents are the worst thing, right? Like, if we're going to talk about your health when it comes to painting in oils, solvents are the worst. If you're learning how to paint from oils right now and you're looking at Bob Ross videos, please do not do what he is doing.
Yeah.
He is working in a studio with a bucket of turpentine, an open bucket of turpentine. Turpentine is an incredibly brutal solvent. And then he cleans his brush and beats it out on the leg of his easel, essentially and effectively aerosoling turpentine into his studio atmosphere. It's just a recipe for death. Do not do that.
I think we follow Bob Ross too, and I've hosted him, so I should probably I don't want to condone those actions. I mean, they make a sweet sound. Don't get me wrong.
I'm just trying to warn people if they're like, I want to learn to paint in oils, and Bob Ross is a great resource, and he is, because it's good stuff. It's an interesting process, but just don't, like, the rule I have is, when I use solvents, they're not even in my studio. They're down in the basement near a sink where I wash my brushes, and I go down there and I open them up, and I only have them open when I'm washing my brushes. Then I close them up, and I try not to get them on my skin.
So on this channel, you guys dunk on Bob Ross too. Wow.
No, I'm not dunking on Bob Ross. It's Tyler dunks on everyone and hates
Tyler
everyone.
dunks on everyone is the name of the stream. Hey, I've got another question from the chat. Potassium nitrate, one of the foremost Scottish people that I know, says,
wow,
if you could both, I'm gonna do it in a Scottish accent. Mine's not as good as hers, but here we go.
Oh, nice.
If you could both only work with one medium for the rest of your career, which one would you choose and why?
That's a bit like Mrs. Hughes.
Wow.
Downton Abbey. That was very good.
Well, she's Scottish,
yes.
so.
That's true. I mean, is she playing a Scottish person? Or, anyways, semantics. Okay.
We don't play around when it comes to moderators, folks. I just want to let you know. This is why we pay the big bucks. For
we hire the best.
Yeah, we are the absolute best in the game. Go ahead. You want to answer it?
If I had only medium to work with for the rest of my life, huh?
Yeah.
Am I phrasing that correctly? I couldn't understand it through that outrageous accent.
Excuse me.
I mean, it'd be oils. It would be oils. I would work in oils.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I enjoy digital. Like, most of my career is digital, but I like oils.
Yeah, I like oils too. I like acrylics too. I don't know. Can I?
Yeah,
is there an option for I don't know?
Yeah, C. It's C. C is the option.
Yeah, but it's a hypothetical and it must be answered. So it's I'll have to mull on that. I don't know. I like oil paints a lot. They are like, they get everywhere though, and it's a huge pain to. You got to set everything up, and you got to do this and that.
Ray's real lazy. You don't want to be doing that.
And I'm very lazy. So, yeah. So usually, yeah, while Tyler's writing mean responses back to art directors, feedback, I'm really just sitting down and loving life. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I do like acrylics. So I've learned to really, really, really like acrylics. They can be a pain though, especially they're not oil paints. I can tell you that, but they are a lot of fun. I like gouache too.
Yeah, I've been getting into acrylics because of Ray. Actually, I've been trying to do more underpaintings and with acrylic. And one thing Ray was pointing out to me, and correct me if I'm inaccurate on this, but a lot of oil paint, a lot of acrylic paints tend to dry darker or lighter than what you put them down. And Ray's been using the Winsor Newton professional acrylics, I think is what they're called. Is that right, Ray?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Here we are. These ones, they're like the silver cased ones.
Yeah, that's it.
And they don't do that. They are very accurate to how they went down. So I've liked these a lot more because that was kind of one of my biggest issues with acrylics. I used to paint with like miniature acrylics a lot, and they're nice and thin and even and have good opacity. But they tend to dry like varying degrees of matte or varying degrees of gloss. But these Winsor Newton professional ones are incredibly stable.
And there's some artists who
if you guys have ever tried the water-based oils.
I have not.
I have, yeah. They're fun. They're a little bit. They're not as viscous as some of the as the regular oils, and yeah, they're a lot of fun. But I still like the. They don't go on as thickly as. They don't move like regular oils because it's like it's a modified. They modify the oil in it so that it can accept water, but you have to be careful how much water you put down on it. And blah 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 blah. So yeah, but I've seen some really nice results from them.
Yeah, I haven't tried them out. I mean, I know an artist friend of mine, Mark Poole, who uses them, and there is a water-based oil manufacturer that makes some pretty interesting like neon color paints that you can't really get out of regular oil paint pigments. And so in some of his paintings, he's able to get these incredibly like vivid neon sunsets that are achieving like a level of chroma that I've never seen regular oil paints achieve.
Oh wow!
So there's some interesting advantages and disadvantages, I think, for both. But give it a try. Never limit yourself. If you want to try them out, do it.
Yeah.
Jay Madalena has a question about, well, an observation. Apparently, James Gurney uses casein paint, and Jay Madalena wonders if either of you have tried that.
I haven't.
I have. Yeah, I have. It has a pretty big time color shift, and they don't smell very well. They don't smell very good. They don't pass my smell test for paint. But they were used. Caseins was really used a lot around the time where time before acrylics, and so because it dried pretty hard and water resistant when it would dry. So you couldn't reactivate it with water, unlike gouache, which you could. So it's really opaque. And I mean, the stuff you get some really nice results with it. I mean, geez, look at James Gurney using them. So yeah, they're fun. They're I think only Shiva is the only one that really, or Richardson is the only one that makes casein because it's not as popular as it used to be. So yeah, so try it out.
Yeah, I guess the takeaway is try it out. See what you think. I don't think there's any magic paint, so
Yeah, what we learned in school is basically just like mediums were just possibilities, right? And so you're, as long as you didn't run into any compatibility issues, uh, you could pretty much swap. When you're looking at an image, it's just a set of a collected set of decisions, right? And each decision you make is trying to get you closer and closer to a finish. And so, whatever medium can help you get there faster and as enjoyable uh, as as it is for you, then by all means do it. Like Tyler's painted from start to finish in oils, and I painted in acrylics, and then finishing in oils. And the great thing about it is, if you realize you get tired of that, you could switch back. You could do anything you want, and that's the great thing. So don't think you have to choose, unless you're forced to choose, like you are in Scotland apparently. So Scottish law.
Scotland.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Ray said, be conscious of, if you're going to be switching, be conscious of the chemistry you're dealing with, right? So you can't paint, gouache watercolor over oils or acrylic over oils. So, you kind of got to stick within your realm. I think a good example of this is what Strusen does is,
Drew Strusen.
Drew Strusen works on a gray gessoed illustration board. So that's acrylic. He does a line drawing in graphite or in Prismacolor. And he airbrushes acrylic over that, and then more Prismacolor on top of that. So he's staying safe chemistry wise within all of his mediums. He's never going in there with oil and then going in back over with acrylic. But he could go with oil over the top of all that if he wanted. You just can't really put anything over oils.
For those of you who don't know, Drew Strusen is still alive, but he says he's retired. The movie poster artist who did one of the probably the greatest movie poster artists of the last century, right? I mean, he did all the Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and heck, even Kingdoms of Crystal Skull. He did.
They brought him out to do that.
The Star Wars posters, what did they call them? The special editions and the prequels posters he did. Back to the Future,
New Hope too, way back in the day as well.
Yep. The circus style poster for that.
Yeah, it had like a J.C. Leyendecker kind of feel to it.
Yeah, and he had his buddy at airbrush the land speeders or something.
Yeah. And he did the last Star Wars one he did was Force Awakens, and then they didn't really use him again after that.
Yeah.
He's kind of the best thing when it came to Star Wars posters was Strusen.
All right, what the hell do I want to do?
Yeah, well, we kind of went on a tangent there. What were we talking about? I mean, just Strusen's great.
I don't know.
Check him out if you don't know.
I'm trying to figure out how to apologize to the people of Scotland after you turned them against me.
Yeah, you don't want to get on their bad side, right? Historically.
No, man, I want to go to Scotland. They got a sweet museum there.
I'm sorry to everybody in Scotland.
100% of the Scots that I know, which is about 3 of them, love my Scottish accent. So I think that's the trick. If you need to get back in their good books, just work on that
let
accent.
You talk more in Scottish.
Yeah.
Just roll your R's on you. Great. Get your R's rolling, everybody.
Yeah, if we could. So if we get Kate to speaking a Scottish, the longer we get Kate to speaking a Scottish accent, the more the Scottish people will forgive me. Basically,
I think that's the rule.
I think that's accurate, right? Do you know what's in Scotland? John Singer Sargent's Lady Agony. You ever heard of that thing?
Oh, really? That's in Scotland. Which museum?
I think it's the Scottish National Museum or something like that of art. I saw it in New York.
Chat. Where is that?
I think it's in Edinburgh.
Okay. I've never been to Scotland, so
I've never been to Scotland. I'm totally making that up. So I guess I shouldn't say I think. I said I think is an Edinburgh.
Well,
They
that's one of
had
my favorite sergeants.
it's incredible. I saw it in New York at the Frick Museum in New York City. They had the Treasures of the Scottish National Museum, and it was like killer. You know,
This
I
is
like
kind of a
this.
good. I mean, this we can segue a little bit here because we don't have a script. Everyone, we're improv. We're
Yeah,
improv.
we have a script. We're tight script.
But art education is. We can talk about that. I mean, it's
Yeah,
super
man.
important.
Yeah.
Go to museums, everyone. Look at the best artists in the world. Like that's one of the best ways to get good, and also to develop your own style, because we're all sort of an amalgamation of all the styles that have inspired us. So look at as much good art as you can. That's like something an artist we know from art school, Randy Barrett. He's a matte painter at Pixar. He told me that over and over again. Look at as many great artists as you can.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with it.
Yeah. Shout out to Randy. Stuff.
Randy's great.
Wow. For me. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Right. This is a question that comes from me, actually. How much longer, or is it already the case that it's no longer going on your gallery showing at your respective gallery locations? What's the schedule like on those?
Oh, so I have one show up in my gallery in Denver. It's called A Bend Gallery, and I'm in a group show up there until I think mid-August. And tomorrow, I actually it opens a group show at the Arcadia Gallery in Los Angeles, and I'm in a group show there called Five and Under.
Nice.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
awesome.
I see you posting about this. Awesome.
That's kind of a bucket list gallery. It's really awesome, Ray. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks,
Dude,
man.
so
Yeah,
cool.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's a bummer I can't go out there, but yeah, but I'm like super honored to join it. You know what was really cool is when they announced this Arcadia Gallery announced put a posted a detail of one of my paintings. I'm showing 3 paintings up there, and all of a sudden I found this out because I looked at my Instagram feed. All of a sudden, all these like awesome artists started following me on Instagram, and I was like, "What? Like, did they trip over something? Like, how far down the Instagram rabbit hole did they have to go to find me, right?" And so, and then I was like, "Oh, what? Let me check Arcadia's thing," and they had posted it, and I thought that was really cool. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Well, if it was in person, and everyone could go to it, I would absolutely be there.
I know Kate would. I don't believe you.
Yeah, I actually, I thought because the way she phrased the question, because she was like, how long? I thought she was going to say, how long are you going to fucking take on the rest of this Deckard painting? Because you're taking forever.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah.
I figured that's what she was going to say, but
Yeah, it's as a follow-up question.
I like that especially because it implies that I'm only asking Ray.
Right.
Like
right.
I don't care. Tyler can take as long as he wants, but let's hurry this up, please, Ray.
Tyler's camera has been off for the last half an hour.
Yeah. My painting goes away and it comes back with a frame on it.
Oh God, I don't know.
Yeah,
this is the first like Blade Runner painting I've ever done, and I love Blade Runner. Man, I love Blade Runner. Now, I will say,
it's safe to say all of us here are big old Blade Runner fans.
I think now I am first and foremost a fan of the director's cut. Predominantly.
Which one, dude? Which one?
It's the first director's cut.
Oh, the right. The one that came on that black DVD case?
Yeah, the one that was released after the theatrical release where they took out the
Yes.
narration and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that was a great one.
yeah.
I like the final cut as well, but I'm with you. That was I had the VHS of the original theatrical cut for years, and then I got my hands on the director's cut, and I was like, oh my! I had no idea how much better it would be without the dumb narration that they put in there. No offense to anyone who likes that narration, but if you do, you're wrong. It's just stupid.
Guillermo del Toro likes the narration, so you're telling him he's wrong?
Yeah, because
I think he's in the stream. I think I overheard Kate saying that he was in the stream.
Oh well, you know what, Guillermo, we can talk about this later, buddy.
Guillermo, you don't. I agree with you. So we could talk about that and how awesome it is over lunch while we talk about our next project together.
Yeah, great. This is real great, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad this is happening.
I'm gonna cite this comment because I know that at least one of you has been there. But Potassium Nitrate, one of our Scots, says, I got to go to the Rijksmuseum while I was in Amsterdam.
Oh,
and I spent all day in there. It was beautiful. What are your thoughts, Tyler?
It is, and I know Ray's from New York City, from Queens. I don't want to piss him off, but the Rijksmuseum might be better than the Met. Might be better than the Met.
It could be. It could be. You're not upset at me. You're not upset.
I know you're
the
upset.
Mets. I'm probably upset. I might wake up throwing punches in the air when I'm fighting you in my dreams about it. But I've never been to the Rijksmuseum. I definitely want to go. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
So yeah, I have to. That's one of my bucket list ones. Isn't it? There's nothing better than like a museum that blows you away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like as a small review to anyone who's never been to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, it's like a Rembrandt fest. It would be a great way to put it. It's got his Night's Watchman. Is that right? Night's Watchman.
The Night's Watch.
The Night's Watch. It has that on display. It has tons of his paintings on display. It's just a phenomenal collection of work. Make a pilgrimage if you can. Totally worth it.
I would also like to. Yeah, I need to. That's it's like I know it's going to be one of those museums. It's like where you step in and you feel like you just came home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just really exciting. I don't know, but I mean, you and I both probably agree on this. We're really excited about any museum trips, big or small.
Oh, totally. Museum, like I think probably one of my favorite museums on the face of the planet is the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, and
that is a good one.
I went to the Louvre one day and d'Orsay the next day, and I was like, the Louvre is for clowns. d'Orsay's where it's at. It's so good.
Yeah. That's the artist. I honestly think that's like d'Orsay is my wheelhouse because it's it focuses a lot on the 19th century painters, late 19th century, a lot of them, especially like the naturalists. And I'm a huge French fan of French academic painting from that time. So Bouguereau, Jean-Léon Gérôme, Alexander Cabanel, Delaroche, Ernest Meissonier. I mean, like just tons, all those artists, they're the artists essentially trained. They were the teachers of artists like Monet and the Impressionists. So it's just like a generation removed. And artists like John Singer Sargent were in between that, the sort of academic and the Impressionist.
Speaking of Sargent, Lena wants to know if either of you have been to the Isabella Gardner Museum in Boston and the MFA where Sargent painted the ceilings.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, I have not been there. I mean, I've been to the other museum in Boston that has the John Singer Sargent room. What's it? The Boston Art Museum. Is that what it's called?
Boston Public Library, or the library, or the?
No, it's a full museum. They have like a whole room in it that's just John Singer Sargent paintings.
No, that's the MFA. Yeah, you're talking about the big portraits.
Yeah,
big
yeah,
portraits,
with like the big portrait of King George.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
That's the MFA.
That's one.
So you have been to the MFA. You just said you've never been to the MFA.
Okay, that was I misheard it, and we'll cut that.
It's a great
part
episode
out in post.
of Livebrush here.
We'll cut it out in post. Everybody, don't worry about it.
Really selling the whole professionalism thing.
So now that we've cut that out in post, we'll pick it up right here. It's like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Been to that museum. Yeah. Great.
That's awesome. It's awesome. I love the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Is all right. I don't want to ruffle feathers about this. I will tell you that it has
that means you're about
some
to,
of
though,
the.
right?
It is one of the places for to find people like Daniel Garber, Andrew Zorn, all these incredible paintings,
Right.
and the collection is insane. It's got Sargent del Jaleo, the Spanish dancers. It's incredible, but the presentation is probably the worst presentation of paintings I think I've ever seen, because you can't see anything, because Isabella Stewart Gardner had she built a house and a museum, and she built the museum that she lived in too, and she was alive when it was running. I don't know. Do you know the story behind it?
No, I haven't heard.
She basically
We'll
when she died.
Ray's Art History segment. That's what
Yeah.
I'll call it. We'll make a graphic.
Yeah. Now it's time, kids, gather around. And so I know I was considering saying it in a very thick New York accent, like my forefathers. So
I don't know why you won't, but
yeah. So Isabella Stewart Gardner's will, she was a very particular person, and which is awesome, because she got all these incredible artists. She was a huge patron of the arts, right? But when she died, she left a will that said that you cannot move a single thing in the museum.
Oh no!
Everything has to be exactly where I left it, because it's the way I want it. And I mean, it's her work, right? She do whatever the hell she wants to do. But that also meant that the lighting couldn't change on anything, so nothing could be changed. And for a while, a lot of the museum directors basically were to the letter about keeping with her will. And so that's why when there was a bunch of robbers came in and actually stole the very famous Rembrandt by cutting it. It was in a frame, and they cut it out of the frame. And when they came in the next morning, they just saw a frame, and the Rembrandt was gone. And they were so exacting, or they tried to keep to Isabella Stewart Gardner's wills to such an extent that they left for years. They left that empty frame up there because they said that nothing could be moved, right? Even though the painting was gone, it was just a frame. But it's like, no, the wills, says that we can't move anything, and so a lot of that work can't go on. For a time, it couldn't be traveled. It's going to go on travel exhibitions to be loaned out, and so on and so forth. So it's just so heartbreaking to see it. And I go multiple times. Every time I went to Boston a couple of times, and I visited multiple times throughout my visit. And every time it's just an absolute heartbreak, because you just cannot, how good these pieces are, because you've seen them in books where they've been taken out to be professionally photographed, and you can see how incredibly luminous they are. But they are just, it's, imagine a room of like the most insane Andrew Zorn paintings you've ever seen, all lit by one fuzzy warm light bulb in the middle of the room.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, was it like lit by candlelight or something?
Yeah, it's like
terrible.
a 4-watt light bulb, right? And so, and it's just like, oh no, so that concludes Ray's story art.
Yeah. Well, Ray really handed it to that museum.
We should call it. We should call it art or fart. That's what we should have a segment.
One of our early segment ideas was that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, art or fart. Yeah. So
that's a shame, really. I'm hopefully someone can violate that will.
They're slowly starting to loosen up a little bit because they added an extension to it, and they were having shows in there. And yeah, I was talking to somebody in Boston about it, who was familiar with, who knew people familiar with the matter, as they say in all manner of like kind of journalistic articles. So, all right. So where are we at? Yours is looking good, man.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of zeroing in on dropping it. I think I'll put in, I kind of save like the real juicy specular highlights for the end, and I'm kind of zeroing in on that space. So that'll probably be the stuff I work on in the last like half an hour here. Is
how much time do we have left? I'm like not even.
We got about a half an hour, I think.
Okay. Let's try and finish this thing here. I'm gonna attempt to just fix the head, fix the background by taking some of the background and painting over it. And
do a lot of fixing, man.
Yeah.
Fix that
shit, man.
Because I don't know what's going on over there. No, yours is looking good, man.
Neither do I.
I love the you have this build up and that specularity on his cheek there. That's just so hot. Hot as in temperature, everybody, but all of it.
He meant it both ways.
Yeah, all those ways. I think what I will do on the end here is I'll hit some of those really intense specularities, and I'll get like some extreme darks in, and then I'll call it.
Yeah, and we'll post really nice versions of this of these pieces, nice pictures of them, and if you happen to like them and maybe are interested in acquiring them, we'll have the information for that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. These are all available if anyone wants to dig in. If you don't like them, keep it to yourself. Obviously.
If you don't like them, let Tyler know you don't like his. And
yeah. Just send it to my email. You can chat. This is, I think, the hardest part on this guy. This painting here is all of her little like stringy hair. I'm just gonna be very impressionistic about it.
Yeah, so you notice how like there's some areas that Tyler's tightening up, and other ones that it's just sort of letting the paint be the paint and being a little bit more suggestive about it. That is a type of, well, it's part of the whole process of finishing. And this is something that I kind of teased early on, but it's what our teacher Xiaoming Wu really kind of emphasized. When you are putting in information or detail or high contrast in your painting.
Oh, thank you. Got some water. Got some water.
Oh, you got some water?
Go ahead, Ray. Sorry about that incredibly rude interruption.
But she didn't even bother doing it in a Scottish accent. We're trying to repair. We're trying to build bridges here. So there's you have to kind of select and choose where you want to put your information in. If I put the same amount of detail everywhere, then you basically are emphasizing everything at the same time. So if everything is important and everything is emphasized, then nothing is important or nothing looks emphasized. And so the eye really doesn't have anywhere to go. And this is a thing that takes a lot of practice to learn how to do this, but you have to look at your piece, and this is the reason why you want a big idea, you know, and not this is not required, but it's a good idea to try and build your piece all at the same time so that you can manage this a little bit easier. But you have to decide which areas are the areas you want the viewer to look at, and so those are the areas you're going to put the most saturated color, the most contrast, the most finesse detail, because that's the area that really you want the person to look at. And so for me, it's all about this area right here, you know, where the cool light, the warm light is hitting Deckard. It's this sort of spotlight, and then it's emphasized. And I did that by first tightening up. I'm going to continue tightening up this area, and then I also, to give it a punch, I also contrasted it with a really set of cold colors, or colors that are attached by blue, and you could see all of that area right there. And that's an old trick that has been used for for centuries, you know, by artists. And so another thing I'm going to try and do too is keep all of my edges that I don't want the viewer to go to soft. And so any area around his clothes, like so the exterior, you know, I want to kind of soften these things ever so slightly, which is one of the reasons why I switched to oils, because it's really easy to do that in oils. The way you do that in acrylics is you could pre-wet the surface and paint back and forth between the background and whatever part of the form you're painting, or you can just drag your brush over it ever so slightly, and that's with very little paint. And if you drag your paint over it, it's called dry brush. And if you do it sparingly, then it will, you know, you'll get that same kind of feathered effect. But that's just sort of an end part. And but that's where we're at, you know, in our paintings. None of this works if you don't have, you know, a decent drawing down or your forms built up. So, you know, this is just sort of icing on the cake. So you really have to build that foundation before you can really start to put all these fun bits in, because it's really just the foundation is what's making all these fun bits look good.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to talk about too, is like the principles of composition, really. Like this is like a culmination of a bunch of ideas, right? So we have our basic principles of composition deal with edge control, deal with focal points. They all work together, as well as values and the way you control them. So what we're trying to do is, you know, some of these principles have to do with the area of highest contrast is where the viewer is going to go. Their eye is going to go to that area of highest contrast, and that contrast can be temperature, like Ray has. It's a very cool image, and then he has that incredibly hot spot. That's a way of contrasting. It can be soft and hard edges. Our eyes tend to go to really hard edges. It can be values. So it can be the darkest darks near the lightest lights. So I have the advantage in this image of Ripley of having the whites of her eyes really showing intensely. And that contrasted with her irises just immediately becomes a focal point. It's almost impossible to ignore. So these are all things you can play with when you're trying to direct the viewer's eyes. And that's what you're doing all the time when you're painting. Illustrations or fine art or just making any images, is you're controlling where the viewer looks.
It's a big responsibility when you realize that, and you realize how much you have to keep track of, you know. And so, you know, that's why we always recommend don't rush things, and just take your time kind of putting things in. You know, we ourselves are working fairly quickly on this, but you know, I mean, we spent two sessions on it, 4 hours, but I could definitely spend another 4 hours on this easily, you know, if I really wanted to kind of really tighten it up. And that's kind of what the reason why we wanted to continue these pieces, to kind of give you an example of how to go about refining an image even further, because you know, you just kind of see whenever you see pieces, you're really just seeing the end product of it, right? And I think it's important to see how you got there.
I totally agree. It's nice to see the process. I think that's why everyone loves process videos so much. Is, you know, it's easy to be impressed with the end of a piece, but sometimes seeing how someone gets there is that much more impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want, like, you know, feel free to. And the reason why we're doing this also, besides, you know, because we like to insult each other quite a bit.
Yeah.
And is also to answer questions that we had when we were, you know, we had when we were students, you know, like the how, you know, and, you know, how did you do this? How did you do that? You know, and because I think it's important that you ask those questions, because once you do, you start to, it starts to become inside baseball, right? You start to understand the mechanics of how things are built. And, you know, that can allow you to implement those things in your own work. And I think that's great. And, you know, absolutely encourage this.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad we're talking about what we're doing, you know, on and off while we're working on these, because, like you said, it can get in pretty inside baseball without some sort of dialogue going on. Like, well, while we're doing particular things, we want to try and talk about like the principles behind those things. It's
Right.
easy to just say, I'm doing this, you know, like last episode, like I'm doing sfumato here on the edge. It's easy to just say that, but without, you know, knowing these principles, the words don't really matter unless you know like what the hell we're talking about, what the point is of doing a technique like that.
Yeah, you just sprinkle a little sfumato here, you know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit of sfumato.
Sfumato.
You know, we'll do a whole episode in Italian.
That wasn't Italian.
Italian cooking.
Is it? Wait, I don't know.
Sfumato's Italian.
Sfumato,
Italian for smoke.
Sfumato. Right, but you guys weren't speaking Italian. You were just speaking.
Yeah, no, I was, but
I was speaking fluent Italian.
I like that. This is how you speak Italian. This is just how it is. This is the language.
Yeah, you
Lesson
put a
number
vowel
one
on the end of everything.
Lesson number one.
Well, that's Bonilla, right?
Yeah, like there's a great historian guy who does a podcast, Daniele Bolelli, and he it's just everything just has an extra A on the end of it. Just every word. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do an impression because
that would be insulting. Hey, question for Aaron from Aaron Ruffino.
Aaron,
do you guys have any thoughts about balancing painting subjects you're interested in versus becoming too repetitive with your work?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, that can be pretty repetitive. But if it's all you want to do, I don't know if I have an answer for this. I'm gonna have to think about it. Ray, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, if you see that there's your work is becoming repetitive, then it's usually, you know, you might want to ask yourself, okay, is that a good or a bad thing? And if it's a bad thing, you have to ask yourself, okay, why am I being repetitive with my work? And is there something else I'd rather be doing? Is this because I'm only doing this because it's safe? And that's where you have, and I know I've had these moments where, you know, I realize, okay, I'm doing things too similar here. I've got to change these things up if I really want to grow. And you kind of have to have this sort of remind yourself that you're human, right? And so you're a creature of habit. And if you want to go somewhere else with your work, take it to that point, and maybe, and you know, give yourself a plan to do it. I like, for instance, I love doing portraits, and I need to do more of them, and I'm tired of kind of waiting for the perfect moment to do them. So this is the reason why I'm doing things like this, to kind of fall back in love with portraiture, and that will help. You know, that excites me, because I could see it as I could feel myself growing, And so you always just want to be in a state of growth. And so I'd maybe just take a look at those things. I mean, it's a great question. It's something artists deal with quite a bit, you know. I mean, we've seen that, right, Tyler? I mean, like
change it up.
Yeah, we've also seen what happens when you don't, right? It's like we've seen these artists that have were like incredible, like when they first came out, and then they just kind of did the same thing that for 40 years that they did in their 20s, and you realize like it's not as good, you know, and there was no real growth because maybe the artist just had like so much demand for their work that they just didn't feel the need to change it up.
Yeah, I think there's like you were saying, like changing it up, I think is a great way to put it, because it gets you into, it's like if you're working on 3 paintings at once, you change them out, right? So that you can get fresh eyes. I think doing that with subject matter in your paintings is great too, because it gives you fresh eyes when you go back to the things that you're used to doing. But it also, you learn new things when you're painting different stuff. Like it's not necessarily the case that painting landscapes helps improve your portrait painting, but it gives you another like view on painting itself, and it's gonna help you no matter what. You're gonna get better at other things the more you play around with different subject matter.
Yeah, it's a great question here.
So I'm just doing some final touches on this. One thing I did want to show is that this is kind of in a little fun series I've been playing around with. I think we mentioned this in our pilot episode, but working on I have a bunch of other ones, right? So I've been just messing around with other characters from 80s movies that I loved. So this is the Jack Burton one that I did a few weeks ago. Just real rough fun. I didn't get the bigger finish on this Ripley piece, obviously, but I think I only spent about an hour and a half on that one. Then I did this one of Luke, The Empire Strikes Back. Because like that scene in Dagobah when he's training. And then this is a very near and dear character to my heart is Ash from Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
There's a pattern.
So these are just
these
fun
are
ones.
all sweaty people.
Yeah, they're real sweaty folks.
They're all sweaty. I'm not kidding. They are all sweaty. Kurt Russell is the least sweaty, which is saying something.
He's the least sweaty. I think that was maybe it's not a thing in movies nowadays. Although I think it is a little bit in certain scenes. But there was a lot of like, water bottle fake sweat in the 80s. I think it just added to the way movies were made. Everyone was kind of glistening all the time. Whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando or Predator, he's just oiled up every scene. Ripley's she's getting a little sweaty in Aliens.
She's drenched most of, especially at the end.
I would be too, man. Running around.
Do you think she's sweatier? What's her sweatiest movie of all the Alien movies? Where is she the sweatiest?
Oh, it's definitely Alien 3.
The original Ghostbusters. The original Ghostbusters.
She's pretty sweaty in that too. But I guess that's an Alien movie. It's kind of a precursor.
I'd say Alien 3 because it's one of David Fincher's like first movies, and everyone basically just got out of the shower in that movie. They all were completely fucking soaked.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my God,
But that's every David Fincher movie. Everyone's getting out of the shower.
You're
At least
totally
his
right.
early movies.
There's a lot of people running around with like towels around their necks too, right? As if they're drying off from the shower.
Yeah, it's like Top Gun, but for detectives.
Yeah, but I think we're gonna.
I don't want to digress into craziness, but I could this could be like us talking about movies podcast, but we could save that. We'll digress into them occasionally.
We
But we'll
do
correct
whatever we
ourselves out of
want.
it. Yeah, that's
I
true.
think I've
Do whatever
I
we
think
want.
I've patched things over with the Scottish people, so I think
Yeah,
we're.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if we can go there, but we'll see. We'll see if they let us in.
So
You can't go there.
Ray, you're still. It sounds like the jury's still out on you. I'm allowed, but Tyler is going to get arrested at Hadrian's Wall. They said.
There it
Oh,
is.
right, right. Well, I'm a big fan of ancient Roman history, so
The
I
Scots.
would be honored.
They've updated their assessment. Ray, you're allowed in. Tyler, still on ice.
There it is.
Nice. All right. All right, fine.
Thank you, Scotland, for
Don't-
being in the chat.
Thank you.
Don't make me
Robert
side
the
with
Bruce
the
has
English.
entered the chat. Robert the Bruce has entered the chat.
You Scottish people in the chat, you are making me side with the English here, and you're forcing my hand.
If there are any Scottish art directors watching, if you have a huge project with a huge budget, I am available.
And me, I only want to be working with English art directors. So, 3 lions.
Three lions. Yeah, there goes like half of our chat right there.
Yeah, they all left. It's a sensitive subject.
I spent all stream trying to get them back, keep them from leaving, and then you undid my hard work all in like 3 letters.
By design.
With one statement, 3 lions. Oh no.
The Scots are very upset. Here's what's being said. Potassium nitrate says the English, now it's war. Talp the Scots says, wow, Tyler. And then Potassium said Tyler's going to start the next UK Civil War. Talp says, I'm burning my Avernus book right now, which I think is tonally appropriate.
I'm just trying to get you guys Scottish independence. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm here for you.
Giving it the push you need, yeah.
I want to pull that blue field out of that British flag. All right, I want to yank that blue field out.
I can see the headlines in Twitch news. Top Magic the Gathering artist Tyler Jacobson calls for British Civil War.
mainly over the flag design. It's mostly over a graphic design issue, and that's it.
Oh God.
Oh, Talp the Scott says the independence issue is not something we want to get into. So let's steer this conversation, boys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. What were we talking about? Movies?
Yeah, we were talking about movies, right? And you said how you didn't want to. Before you alienated most of our chat. We were talking about movies, but this is actually
buckle up,
actually something that we are. We're gonna kind of like do a theme, I guess, right? I mean, kind of keep with this theme, and we're gonna explore different ways of kind of picture making by doing this stuff. At least for the next one, as well. Now, this time, last time or for this one, we both picked our own references, but the next one, I think we were talking about maybe both doing a painting from the same reference, right?
Yeah, this was fun. Kate's idea from the other night, and I guess the chat could tell us what they think, but that'd be kind of fun. I think if because we have we come from slightly different arenas. We're both artists. We both work in similar fields, but we have different approaches to creating imagery. And I think if we both painted from the same image, it would be really informative for those folks out there watching to see how we conquer it, because it goes back to our philosophy of there's no wrong way to do a painting. People have their own methods, but doesn't mean that method is wrong or right. There's so many ways you can approach creating a painting. I mean, this is like something we got from Thomas Blackshear, who would paint a painting like different every single time almost.
Yeah. And our teacher Bill Mon would do the same thing, and
Right.
Encourage us to experiment. And that's why we love artists like Thomas Blackshear or chameleons. Just can do things differently, because you know what, you don't have to be. It just goes to show you that you don't have to be tied down to a certain one way of doing things. Just because I did it or Tyler does it doesn't mean that's the only way you should do it.
Right. Right. Don't be afraid. It's easy to, I guess, I wouldn't even call it being complacent. It's just easy to get into a nice, efficient way to get a painting done, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is really informative and fun to try out different styles and different approaches and watch how people do things, because it's just going to help you with your own process, your own style.
Right. Or it might not, and we could totally ruin your, totally ruin all the creativity in your bones.
Yeah, just ruins your whole career, and you're done.
And then you're done.
No,
that's
no.
not
I mean, you can always go back. I mean, I think throughout my painting career, I feel like this is how it feels to me. Like I've never even had a particular method. I feel like I've painted a painting differently every time.
I feel the same way.
I like to try new processes out, try out new techniques. I encourage everybody to experiment. It's really important for your art education.
And it will help break. I think going back to it helps to circle back around to Aaron's question about, breaking that repetitious cycle too. That's doing things differently, every single time.
Yeah.
That's huge. So we got 8 minutes left? Three.
All
Perfect.
right. Well, that's great. We got to a good spot here. I think I'm calling this one done.
Okay. You look great, man.
We should talk about this next time, but when something's done and when something's not is, even George Lucas had this problem with Star Wars. Who knows where that is? And it is something to fool around with. I tend to just leave something because I'm usually under a deadline, so I'm like, all right, got it, and I just got to call this. It's over with.
Right.
That's kind of where I end up being most of the time. But yeah, so I guess we're down at the end of the line here, right? Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
I guess so. No, I was going to say I'm going to tinker on this just a little bit more, but you will see the finished version. I'll get a lot better about finishing things on stream. I guess I picked the way I picked the type of painting process I picked allows me to kind of work in and out with things, but I want to maybe give it a little bit more refinement. So I don't know if it's like the best in terms of finishing off something extremely quickly for people on stream while answering questions and whatnot. But hey, it's one way of working. So.
By the way, Tyler, I just flashed a graphic several times over your paintings announcing that it's done. So that's a cool
done.
All right.
I think that's our first. I've been trying to figure out what emotes we might want to make for the chatters in the channel. I think one that says
Sweet.
Done.
Yeah. I like it.
Approved. Approved. Art director approved.
I like it a lot. Yeah. So I guess we'll end it on that, right? Yeah.
Wait,
so Tyler,
one more stroke. Not done.
Are you going to sign it?
All right.
Or
I will. Yeah, I will sign it.
Okay.
I don't know if we have enough time for them to see that, but I will sign it before I.
Yeah, you go for it. I'm not gonna. You'll see. I'll sign mine's later once I'm done with a couple of more touches. Or should we do it at the same time?
No rush.
Okay.
No, Tyler just wins the race. That's all.
Yeah, he just
Yeah, I
wants
mean,
an ace.
don't try and catch up. Don't try and catch up. No, just take your time. Take your time. Well, the reason I say, like, I don't know if I should sign it on the stream here is we're ending here, and this, might take me a minute. But I'm working on like I don't know. This is small enough that my signature is gonna look like crap, but I got too big of a brush.
Signing's really it's a lot more difficult than what people think. I think it's one of the hardest things, trying to get a signature that looks good and professional.
Yeah, I think I've gone through like I'm gonna have to redo this later, but I've gone through like 50 signatures in my life. I think I've finally settled on this one only because of magic cards. I finally settled on this one I can do pretty quickly for signing magic cards. But there we are. We're done. We finished it.
Awesome.
And Ray lost. So
I did. I totally lost, but I won the hearts. I won the heart of the chat. Yeah, you might have won the battle. You might have won the battle, my friend, but I won the war. I won the hearts and minds of our chat.
At the non-skunks,
you did actually.
Yeah,
you did. I may have made some enemies, but you know what? If you live this life on Earth and you don't make some enemies, what's the point?
And that's what this stream's all about, folks.
Making enemies.
Making enemies. Yeah. You heard it here, folks. Make as many enemies as you can.
Where can folks find y'all's work, real quick?
You can find my work on Ray Bonilla Painter on Instagram and RaymondBonilla.com on the interwebs.
Yes, I am Tyler Jacobson Art on Instagram and www.tylerjacobsonart.com. And we've put some links in this, I believe, this Twitch page.
Yep.
You can see that first episode, our pilot episode, on Tyler Jacobson Art, the Twitch channel for that, Tyler Jacobson Art. But see you next time. We're gonna make a Friday thing out of this. So.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for everyone for joining.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you, Kate.
Good show.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.